Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, I spent the last 3 days falling down a very specific, and I mean a very niche rabbit hole. I've been reading through industrial supply catalogs for the funeral industry.
That sounds like a cheerful weekend activity.
It was surprisingly gripping. Specifically, I was looking at this massive stack of materials from the Funeral Channel Network and the Funeral Program site.
Right, I'm familiar with their stuff. Very detailed.
Incredibly detailed, and I got completely, utterly stuck on one specific item. It's an object we see every single day. We see it on lapels, on the back of cars, on football coaches during October, the awareness ribbon.
The looped ribbon. Yeah, it is ubiquitous. You can't escape it.
Right. And I think most of us, and I definitely include myself in this, we look at that and think, okay, it's a strip of pink fabric. Someone bought a spool at a craft store, cut it with scissors and pinned it on. It feels like a DIY project.
That is the common assumption.
Yeah.
It looks simple. So we assume the creation is simple, that the meaning is simple.
But according to these documents, specifically this really heavy-hitting article they published called The Architecture of Oncology Advocacy, we are completely wrong.
Oh, completely.
This isn't a craft. This is an engineered artifact. I mean, we're talking about medical semiotics, industrial hot knife manufacturing, and this global battle for what they call visual real estate.
It's a massive ecosystem. It really is. You have the physics of the fabric interacting with the psychology of grief and advocacy. It's a fascinating intersection.
So that is our mission today. We are going to decode the ribbon. We are not just talking about pink means breast cancer. We are going to find out why brown failed as a cancer color, why you should never, ever cut a ribbon with scissors if you want it to last, and how this little loop of fabric became maybe the most powerful symbol in modern healthcare.
To do that, we need to look at the genealogy, the engineering, and really the business of how we mourn and advocate. It's all tied together.
And since we are drawing from the Funeral Channel archives, we're going to be looking at this through the lens of memorialization, because that's where the engineering and the personalization gets really, really intense. But let's start at the beginning, the genealogy of the ribbon.
Okay.
I think if I asked a random person on the street where the awareness ribbon came from, they'd probably say breast cancer.
Almost certainly. The pink ribbon is the Goliath of the industry.
Yep.
It's the one that has total mind share. But historically, that is not the origin point at all.
Not even close.
No. If we look at the timeline provided in the Architecture of Oncology Advocacy article, the modern iteration really kicks off in the 1970s. And it wasn't medical. It was geopolitical.
This was the Iran hostage crisis.
Precisely. 1979. And it's tied to a piece of pop culture that almost accidentally became a piece of history. The song Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Ole Oak Tree.
Tony Orlando and Dawn, a classic.
That's the one. It was a massive hit in 1973. But the lyrics, they tell a very specific story. A prisoner coming home, unsure if he's still welcome. He tells his love, if you still want me, tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree.
So the symbol was about waiting. It was about hope, but also this deep uncertainty.
Exactly. It's a symbol of conditional return. And when the hostages were taken in Iran, Penny Langan, who was the wife of Bruce Langan, the charge d'affaires at the embassy, she took that song literally. She was inspired by that imagery.
And she tied a yellow ribbon around a tree in her front yard in Maryland.
She did. And that one simple act seems to have shifted something fundamental in the American psyche.
How so? What was the shift?
Well, before that moment, waiting for a soldier or a hostage to return was a private act. It happened inside the home, in a living room, in silence. It was an internal familial grief or hope.
Invisible to the outside world.
Completely invisible. The ribbon moved that emotion outside. It moved it to the front yard, the public square. It signaled to the neighbors, to anyone driving by, I am waiting. There's an absence in this house. It created a community of waiting.
It turned a private feeling into a public statement, a placeholder for a person. So how do we get from a tree in Maryland to a lapel pin for chemotherapy?
The pivot point is the early 1990s, and the context is the AIDS crisis.
Right.
You have to remember the context here, which the source material really emphasizes. The silence surrounding AIDS at that time was deafening. It was stigmatized. It was often ignored by the administration. It was a crisis happening in the shadows.
It was invisible to the mainstream, deliberately so in many cases.
Exactly. The activists, specifically a group called the Visual AIDS Artists Caucus in New York, needed a way to break that silence without saying a single word. They needed a visual shout.
Something you couldn't ignore.
Exactly. And they looked at the yellow ribbon phenomena, which had resurfaced during the Gulf War for the troops, and they thought, we can use that language. We can use the ribbon as a symbol. But they knew they needed to change the color.
To red.
And the choice of red was incredibly deliberate. It wasn't just a random color. It wasn't love or hearts. It was blood. It was passion. It was anger.
It was confrontation.
Deeply confrontational. In a sea of gray suits and political silence, a bright red loop screaming from a lapel was impossible to ignore. It was a way of contrasting the somber, hushed tone of illness with the vibrant, undeniable color of blood. It forced the issue into the open.
And that opened the floodgates.
It absolutely did. Once the red ribbon proved that a small, simple visual marker could carry that much political and emotional weight, the entire medical advocacy world took note. The Susan G. Komen Foundation adopted the pink ribbon shortly after that, and because of their marketing prowess, that became the global icon.
The one everyone knows.
The one that set the standard for what we see today.
And now, looking at our sources, especially these catalogs from the funeral program site, it seems like the floodgates didn't just open, they completely broke off their hinges. We have what they call a rainbow of ribbons.
It is an absolute explosion of color. And this is where we see that crucial shift. The ribbon moves from being a political statement to being a very specific medical signal.
A diagnostic symbol, almost.
In a way, yes. In the late 90s, every organization, every foundation for every disease realized they needed a distinct visual identity to compete for donations and attention.
Visual real estate. I love that term from the article. It sounds like a turf war.
In a way, it is. And that leads us directly into what I call the taxonomy of color, because there are only so many primary colors in the spectrum, right? Roy G. Biv. But there are thousands of diseases. So you start seeing this fascinating competition for visibility.
Okay, let's unpack that competition, because the sources mention some really specific examples where organizations actually changed their colors to be more marketable.
Yes. This is where the biology of a disease clashes with the psychology of marketing.
And the most fascinating case study in the notes was the Colon Cancer Alliance.
This is a classic example of rebranding a disease.
Because biologically, clinically, if you were looking for a color associated with the colon,
you go with brown.
That's
It's the clinical biological reality. And originally, that was the color that was associated with the cause.
But try selling a brown lapel pin to a donor at a fancy fundraising gala.
It doesn't work. It's a tough sell. It has negative associations in our culture. It's not aesthetic. It's hard to build a warrior identity, that powerful advocacy metaphor around the color brown. It doesn't pop on a poster.
It just gets lost.
It gets lost, and people are hesitant to wear it. So the Alliance made a very strategic pivot. They claimed dark blue.
Which is sleek, it's corporate, it's professional, it looks like a suit color.
It's palatable. It's trustworthy. And that's the central tension these organizations face all the time. Do you want to be biologically accurate, or do you want to be visible and effective in your fundraising?
It's a tough choice.
And the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society did a similar calculus. They chose red for blood cancers.
But wait a minute, red was already taken. Red was the AIDS ribbon. That seems like a major conflict, a major overlap.
It is a huge conflict, and it's a source of tension. But from their perspective, leukemia is a blood cancer. Red is the color of the affected organ system. They calculated that the blood association was strong enough and direct enough to risk the confusion with the AIDS ribbon.
They're sort of piggybacking on the recognition of red?
They are effectively drafting behind the popularity and instant recognition of the red ribbon to gain visibility. It's a calculated risk to steal a little bit of that visual real estate.
Wow. So if I'm walking through a hospital or, a funeral home and I see these different colored ribbons on people, I might actually need a decoder ring to understand what's going on.
You really might. The overlap is significant, and the specificity is growing every year.
Let's run through the list then, because we have this incredible Rosetta Stone of ribbons from the funeral program site catalog. I counted, and there are over 50 distinct colors and patterns listed. Let's hit the big ones and some of the surprising ones.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start with the one everyone thinks they know, pink.
Breast cancer. Easy.
Yes, but it's not just pink anymore. The nuance is fascinating. The system is fracturing into subspecialties. For instance, you have hot pink.
Okay, for what? For a more aggressive form of advocacy?
For a more aggressive form of the disease. Hot pink is for inflammatory breast cancer. So the color's intensity is meant to match the disease's intensity.
That's interesting.
Then you have a ribbon that is half pink and half blue.
Oh, I think I can guess this one. Male breast cancer.
Precisely. It's a visual way to acknowledge that men get this disease too, to break the gendered association of the color pink.
Mm.
So even within the pink monolith, you're seeing this splintering. The color code is becoming more and more specific.
What about teal? I see that one a lot.
Teal is primarily for ovarian cancer, but it's often used as a kind of catch-all for other gynecological issues. It sits in that blue-green spectrum that psychologically suggests healing or water, but it's distinct from the medical blue of scrubs or the mental health green.
It carved out its own little niche in the spectrum.
It did.
Here is one that I found really poetic in the notes. The ribbon for lung cancer. It's pearl or white or sometimes even clear.
That is a very poetic one. It's meant to symbolize the breath of life, air, purity.
Which is such a stark contrast to the stigma that's often associated with lung cancer and smoking.
Exactly. The ribbon tries to reclaim the dignity of the breath itself. It's a move away from blame or cause and a focus on the fundamental human act of breathing. It's almost invisible, like air.
That's beautiful. And then we have purple.
Purple is pancreatic cancer. And if you look at the language of color psychology, purple often represents royalty, wisdom, or dignity. For pancreatic cancer, which often has a very difficult, very rapid prognosis, the purple symbolizes dignity and perseverance in the face of those overwhelming odds.
So the color itself is a statement of intent.
It's a statement of character for the fight. And then you have gray.
Gray.
Gray is for brain cancer. It's the gray matter.
Oh, that's very literal. I like it.
Very literal. And it also serves as the color for metastatic brain disease when cancer from another part of the body spreads to the brain.
No, this one gets me every time I think about it. Gold.
Gold is for childhood cancer.
Why gold? What's the connection?
Because children are precious. The idea is that they are more valuable than gold. It's a statement of ultimate value.
Yeah.
So when you see a gold ribbon, it's not just signaling a disease. It's saying, this is a loss of something infinitely precious. It elevates the conversation immediately.
Wow. Okay. That's powerful. And then we have black. Now, usually black is just the color of mourning. It's the color of funerals.
It is, and it certainly serves that purpose here too, signifying grief. But in the medical taxonomy, black specifically represents melanoma, the most serious form of skin cancer.
But it's not the only skin cancer ribbon.
No, and this is where that precision medicine really comes in. If it's squamous cell skin cancer, the ribbon is red and white. If it's basal cell, the ribbon is orange.
So you really have to know your specific pathology to wear the right ribbon.
You do. You can't just wear a generic skin cancer ribbon anymore if you want to be precise. You have to wear the specific subtype. The language is getting more granular.
I saw one in the catalog that was black and white stripes, like a zebra.
Ah, the zebra stripe. That is one of my favorites. That is for neuroendocrine tumors and for rare diseases in general.
Okay, why a zebra? What's that about?
It references a very famous adage that's taught in medical school. Doctors are told, when you hear hoofbeats behind you, look for horses, not zebras.
Meaning, look for the common diagnosis first. Don't jump to the exotic rare disease.
Exactly. It's about statistical probability. But for patients who actually have these rare diseases, they are the zebras. They are the exception that proves the rule. They are the ones who were missed because doctors were only looking for horses.
So they're reclaiming the term.
They're reclaiming it. The zebra stripe ribbon is a way of saying, we exist, we are the rare ones, don't overlook us. It's a badge of honor.
That is so cool. It's like an inside joke for the medical community that became a banner for a patient movement.
That's a perfect way to put it. It reclaims the narrative from the doctors.
We also have these two-tone ribbons. We touched on the pink and blue for male breast cancer, but there are others, right?
Oh, yeah. Complexity requires complex symbols. You have burgundy and ivory for head and neck cancer. You have the famous puzzle piece ribbon, which is often grouped in here for autism. The visual complexity is meant to mirror the diagnostic complexity.
And looking at one of our other sources, Celebrate Prints, they even have custom patterns now. Leopard print, plaid.
Yes. They list leopard print, plaid, and even red roses designs. And this is a really interesting evolution. It moves us away from strict medical coding and to personal style and identity.
It's a fashion statement.
It is. It's a way of saying, yes, I have this disease, but I'm still me. I still like leopard print. I am not defined solely by the color code of my illness.
That's a perfect transition, actually, because we've talked about the color, the semiotics, but I want to talk about the thing itself, the object, the architecture part of our title. Because that article, The Architecture of Oncology Advocacy, gets weirdly, wonderfully specific about how these things are built.
It treats the ribbon as an industrial product, not a craft project. And the details matter.
Okay, let's get into the engineering, because I think most people, like me, assume you just buy a spool of ribbon at a craft store, cut a piece, and pin it on.
And you can do that.
Yeah.
But the industry would call that amateur hour.
Huh. Okay, so where does the professional process start?
It starts with the choice of fabric. And the sources really detail this debate between satin versus grosgrain.
Right. This is a battle of materiality. Break it down for us. What's the difference?
Okay, so satin is the luxury standard, specifically what they call double-faced satin.
Double face.
It means it's shiny on both sides. If you buy cheap, single-faced ribbon at a craft store, one side is shiny and the other is dull and rough. If you try to loop that, the dull side inevitably shows. It looks cheap.
Ah, I've seen that.
Double-faced satin ensures that no matter how the light hits it, no matter how it twists, it gleams, it's smooth, it has a high sheen. This is what's used for formal events, funerals, galas, award ceremonies. It visually communicates dignity.
Okay, so satin is for formal wear. What about grosgrain?
Grosgrain is the workhorse. It has that distinctive rib texture. You can feel the ridges with your thumbnail. It's much more matte. It's incredibly durable. And crucially, it holds its shape much better than slippery satin.
So it's more structural.
Much more. So if you are putting a ribbon on a backpack for a school fundraiser or on outdoor wear or something that needs to survive a 3-day fundraising walk in the rain, you want grosgrain.
It's the tactical gear of ribbon.
Essentially, yes. It signals active advocacy versus formal memorialization. It's built for wear and tear.
Now, here is a detail from the expert analysis in that article that just blew my mind. Hot knife cutting. I genuinely did not realize there was a right and a wrong way to cut a piece of fabric.
Oh, there's a profound difference. If you are a DIYer, you use scissors. You snip the end. But if you look at that ribbon under a microscope 2 days later, what do you see?
Little threads hanging off, fraying.
Exactly. It frays. The weave starts to unravel. It looks tattered. It looks cheap. It falls apart.
Which is the exact opposite of the message of perseverance and dignity you want to convey.
Right. In an industrial setting, they never use scissors. They use a hot knife. It's a blade that is heated to several hundred degrees. It slices through the synthetic fabric, and these are all polyesters, and it simultaneously melts the edge as it cuts.
It cauterizes the wound.
That's the perfect medical analogy. It cauterizes the fabric's wound. It seals the plastic fibers together into a hard, clean edge so it can never fray. It creates a permanent sealed edge.
That makes so much sense. It transforms it from a temporary piece of cloth into a durable, manufactured unit. And then there's welding. What is that?
Welding is the process of preforming the loop. If you just take a strip of ribbon and pin it, it can flop over, it can get squashed, it can lose that iconic open loop shape.
It doesn't hold its form.
It doesn't. Professional ribbons are often fused at the center intersection. They use ultrasonic welding or heat seal to bond the fabric to itself. They are structurally engineered to stay open and looped forever.
So it's not just pinned, it's fused into shape.
It creates a permanent architecture. The loop never closes. The symbol remains intact.
Okay, so we have the fabric, we have the perfect cut. Now we have to put words on it. The sources talk about two main print technologies, foil stamping and screen printing. And apparently this is a huge deal in the industry.
It is everything. It is the difference between luxury and bulk. It completely changes the tactile experience of the object, which is so important in the context of a funeral.
Which is which? What's the luxury option?
Foil stamping is the luxury choice. Think about a high-end business card or a formal wedding invitation. It uses a combination of heat and pressure to transfer a thin layer of metallic foil, usually gold or silver, onto the ribbon.
Ooh, so it's actually metallic and shiny?
Very shiny. It has a true mirror-like finish. But the key detail the experts in the source material mention is something called the bite.
The bite.
Because it uses intense pressure, it actually debosses the fabric. It presses the letters into the satin, so it has a physical texture. If you run your thumb over the text, you feel the typography. You feel the indentation.
It has depth.
It has depth. It feels expensive. It reflects light in a dynamic way. It applies weight and permanence and value.
And screen printing then is the alternative.
Screen printing is the workhorse, just like grosgrain. It's a process where ink is pushed through a fine mesh screen onto the ribbon. It sits on top of the fabric. It has a matte finish. If you run your thumb over it, it feels flat.
So why would you ever choose that if it feels less premium?
2 reasons: color matching and cost. If you are a huge national charity and your official brand color is a very specific shade of teal, let's say Pantone 321, you cannot get that in foil. Foil is just gold, silver, maybe a few basic colors. Ink can be mixed to match any brand identity perfectly.
Ah, for brand consistency.
Crucial for big charities. And second, it's much, much cheaper in bulk. If you need 10,000 ribbons for a stadium-wide event, use screen print.
Got it. So foil's for the funeral, screen print is for the 5K.
That is a perfect summary. Generally speaking, yes, one is for intimate mourning, one is for mass marketing.
One last piece of engineering marvel before we move on to the message itself. The attachment method. The sources are very, very anti-safety pin.
With good reason. We call it the problem with pins in the industry.
Sounds ominous. What's the problem?
If you are wearing a silk blouse or a fine wool suit to a funeral or a nice leather jacket, the absolute last thing you want to do is shove a jagged piece of metal through it. It damages the fibers permanently, it leaves holes, it can snag and tear, it ruins the garment.
Which is not what you want to be worrying about at a memorial service.
No. So what's the solution?
Magnets.
Magnets. The magnetic solution.
I love a good magnet solution.
It's what they call no-hole advocacy. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
You have a small, powerful magnet attached to the back of the ribbon and a separate metal or magnet bar that goes inside your shirt or jacket. These snap together through the fabric.
And they're actually strong enough to hold. It wouldn't fall off a thick coat.
The sources mention dual magnet systems specifically for heavy fabrics like denim or wool. Using two magnets prevents the ribbon from spinning around or getting knocked off. It stays perfectly upright all day.
It's a huge upgrade in the user experience.
It is. It turns the ribbon into a piece of jewelry, something you respect, rather than a disposable tag you're afraid is going to ruin your clothes.
It really does. It elevates the entire object. So, okay. We've built the ribbon. We've colored it with this complex code. Now comes the part that I think really defines the modern era of this symbol. Personalization.
Yes. This is the crucial shift from awareness to tribute, from the collective to the individual.
The article Personalizing Cancer Awareness Ribbons really highlights a sociological shift here. It's no longer just about raising awareness for cancer with a capital C or leukemia as a concept. It's about honoring specific people.
It's the warrior identity. You see this martial language everywhere in the sources. Fighter, struggle, survivor, warrior. The ribbon becomes a medal of honor for that specific soldier in that battle. It stops being a generic symbol and starts being a personal narrative device.
So how are people personalizing them? What are the methods? Where do you put the information?
The primary real estate for text is the tails of the ribbon.
The little legs hanging down from the loop.
Right. And over time, a standard format has emerged. Tail 1, which is usually the left tail, gets the name, in loving memory of Jane Doe, or celebrating the life of John Smith.
Then tail 2, the right side.
Tail 2 is for dates. Traditionally, this would be birth and death dates. But uniquely to oncology and advocacy, you also see cancer-free anniversary dates. Survivor since 2015. It marks the timeline of the battle, whether it was won or lost. It grounds the abstract concept of disease in the specific reality of a human life's timeline.
What about the loop itself? Is that ever used?
Sometimes. The loop might get the name of a hospice, a clinic, or a fundraising team name, like Team Susan. But there is a newer innovation mentioned in the Celebrate print source called a photo ribbon that is even more direct.
I saw this. It's wild. It's next level.
They actually embed a small circular photo disc right in the center crisscross of the ribbon loop. So it's not just a name anymore. You are looking directly at the person's face.
It becomes intensely intimate.
Incredibly, it's like a locket. It acts very much like a Victorian mourning locket, but it's modernized and made for public display. It forces the viewer to engage with the individual human being, not just the cause they represent.
You can't ignore a face.
You can't. And then you have charms.
Right, like little add-ons.
Yes, dangling charms that can be attached to the center. Little hearts, doves for peace, crosses or other symbols for faith-based tributes. It's taking that generic symbol and accessorizing it to perfectly fit the personality and beliefs of the deceased or the survivor.
And braiding. You mentioned that earlier.
Yes, braiding is for comorbidity. It's a very specific and very poignant signal. If a patient has two different primary diagnoses, say breast cancer and lung cancer, the family might braid pink and white ribbons together
To tell the whole story.
to visually represent the complexity of their health journey. It's a way of saying, my situation is not simple. It's not one color, it's a combination.
It's fascinating because it allows people to tell a very complex and personal story without ever having to say a word.
That is the ultimate power of it. It's silent wearable storytelling.
Now, not everyone buys these professional ready-made ones. There's a whole DIY culture that has sprung up around this.
Oh, a huge one. It's a form of grief therapy for many.
The sources mention the Epson Labelworks printable ribbon kit.
Yes, that's thermal transfer printing you can do at home on your desk. You can design and print your own text directly onto satin ribbon spools.
And Cricut machines, the home cutting machines.
Exactly. People use Cricut machines to cut heat transfer vinyl or HTV, and then they iron those custom names and dates onto blank ribbons. From there, you see things like ribbon quilts, where a family will patch together memorial ribbons from different family members who has passed. It becomes a form of folk art.
A family tree of ribbons.
In a way, yes.
Hmm.
It's a way of processing collective grief through the act of making something with your hands.
I want to zoom out a bit to the ecosystem where these things live, because we've been talking about the object, but we need to talk about the context. A lot of our source material, as we said, comes from the Funeral Channel and the Funeral Program site.
Right. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the primary point of contact for many people with these objects.
This isn't just about walking in a park for a fundraiser. This is about the funeral industry.
It is. And the Funeral Program site isn't just selling a ribbon in a vacuum. They are selling an entire curated environment of memorialization.
I learned a new term from their catalog that I had never heard before. The Graduated Funeral Program. Had to look this up.
You've probably seen them even if you didn't know the official industry name for them. It's a specific product format.
Explain it for us. What makes it graduated?
It's a multi-page booklet, but the pages on the inside are cut at slightly different widths. So when the booklet is closed, you see these little tabs sticking out on the side like a file folder system.
Oh, right. So you can immediately see the sections: obituary, order of service, scriptures all at once.
Exactly. It's user experience design, UX, designed for a funeral service. The last thing you want is people fumbling and rustling through pages during a eulogy, trying to find the right spot. The graduated cut guides the attendee through the experience seamlessly.
It's very thoughtful design. And the ribbon is often sold as a component of this booklet. It's part of the package.
It's the keepsake add-on. And this is where the ready-to-wear concept becomes a massive, massive selling point.
The sources really emphasize this ready-to-wear aspect. Why is that so critically important in this context?
You have to think about the mindset of the customer here. They are a grieving family. They just lost a spouse, a child, a parent. They have maybe 3 or 4 days to plan an entire service for 200 people. They're emotionally and physically exhausted.
They're in crisis mode.
Total crisis mode.
Yeah.
They do not have the time, the energy, or the emotional bandwidth to sit at a kitchen table, measure and cut 200 strips of ribbon, and painstakingly attach 200 tiny safety pins, one by one.
It's too much emotional labor on top of everything else.
It is. So the value proposition of a box arriving with 200 done for you, pre-assembled, pre-welded, pre-pinned, personalized tributes is massive. It's buying time and peace of mind, not just fabric. You are outsourcing the manual labor of grief.
It's a service. It's a caretaking service, really.
That's precise.
And then once that funeral is over, or if you're in a hospital setting, the ribbon's function changes again. It becomes what the sources call a meaningful conversation starter.
This is a really important point for patients and survivors. Imagine you have a very rare disease. One of the zebras we talked about before. Let's say it's Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia.
Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast.
Exactly. No one knows what that is. If you wear a generic lavender ribbon for all cancers, nobody knows what your specific struggle is. But if you wear a personalized ribbon that has that name on it or has that very specific zebra stripe, it breaks the ice.
It invites the question.
It invites the question, and it allows the patient to reclaim agency. They aren't just a generic sick person. They are telling their story. It invites the question, what does that ribbon mean?
It empowers them to educate.
Yes. It shifts the entire dynamic from one of pity to one of education. It turns the patient into the expert in the room.
Let's talk about the business side of this, the market dynamics, because there is a real economy here. There's money changing hands.
There absolutely is. There is an economics of advocacy, and it is split into 2 very different parallel worlds: boutique and bulk.
Okay, start with boutique. What does that look like?
Boutique providers, companies like Celebrate Prints or Personalized Cause, they focus on the individual. On the small group, they sell single units or, more commonly, small packs, usually packs of 10 or 12.
And the price point must be higher.
Much higher. A pack of 10 highly personalized ribbons can run you about $42 to $52. That's roughly $4 to $5 per ribbon.
That's not cheap for a piece of fabric.
No, but they market it as museum quality. This is the double-face satin, the soil stamping with a bite, the specialized patterns, the dual magnet backings. It's sold as a permanent keepsake, something intended to last forever in a memory box.
So it's an artifact, not a handout. And bulk.
Bulk is for the 5K run. It's for the hospital-wide awareness day. These are companies like Party Innovations or Mark Flew. They are using screen printing on single-face satin with a basic safety pin. If you order over 1,000 units, the price drops to around $1.06 per unit.
That is a huge, huge difference.
It is, and it defines the object's purpose. It's the difference between a mass-produced handout and a personal gift. It's the difference between marketing and mourning.
There is a little note in the Sork material about pink washing. I think we should probably touch on that as it relates to the economics.
Oh, we have to. It's the major controversy in this space.
Yeah.
Pinkwashing is the criticism that some large organizations commercialize the pink ribbon to sell products. Yogurt, buckets of chicken, you name it. Often without enough transparency about where the funds are actually going or how much is actually donated.
A kind of cause-based marketing that can feel exploitative.
Exactly. And how does that affect the ribbon market?
Yeah, what's the impact?
Interestingly, it actually drives the personalized boutique market. Because people become skeptical of the big generic charities, they decide to go independent.
They opt out of the big system.
They opt out. They buy their own personalized ribbons for a loved one, sell them to their friends and community for $5 each, and then give that money directly to the specific family to help with medical bills or to a small local hospice they trust.
So the personalized ribbon becomes a tool for grassroots micro-fundraising.
Exactly. It bypasses the entire corporate structure. It keeps the money and the meaning hyper-local.
It's really amazing how this entire ecosystem has evolved. I mean, we've gone from a folk song about a yellow ribbon on an oak tree to this highly engineered, foil-stamped, magnetically attached, personalized narrative device.
It's a perfect bridge. On one side, you have cold, hard clinical pathology, the specific color code, the name of the disease. On the other side, you have personal, profound grief, the name on the tail, the face in the photo. The ribbon is the bridge between those two worlds. It translates the medical into the personal.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. We've talked again and again about how specific these ribbons are getting. Hot pink for inflammatory breast cancer, red and white for squamous cell, zebra stripes for rare diseases.
Right. The trend is toward hyper-specialization.
So as medicine itself becomes more precision-based, we are talking genomic categories, individual subtypes, therapies tailored to a single person's DNA. Where does the ribbon go from here?
That is the provocative question, isn't it? Will the system of color completely fracture under the weight of this new complexity? We already see that black is for melanoma, but red and white is for squamous cell. Are we moving toward a future where every single patient or every single genomic subtype of a cancer has its own unique visual identifier?
A hyper-specific language of empathy that almost no one else can read.
Exactly. A language so specific that you might need a digital decoder to even understand it. Will the ribbon of the future have a QR code woven into the fabric that links you to a patient's specific diagnosis? Because the complexity of the disease is rapidly outpacing the simplicity of the color spectrum.
We might be heading toward a future where every ribbon is a fingerprint totally unique to the wearer.
That's a wild thought. A future where we need an app to understand who we are mourning or who we are supporting.
It might be where we are headed. The technology is certainly there.
It is.
Well, on that note, I'm definitely going to be looking at those lapel pins a little differently from now on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the archives of the Funeral Channel.
It was a pleasure. A fascinating topic.
We'll see you next time.